how are you? My name is Joanne Chang and we're here at Flour Bakery and Cafe. I'm here to show you how to make our famous sticky buns. These were featured on Bobby Flay's Throwdown with Bobby Flay and we won. It's actually really easy as long as you know how to make the right dough. So I'm going to start off with showing you how to make a brioche dough. Brioche dough is a traditional French bread dough that has tons of eggs and tons of butter, as you'll see. The best thing to do is to start with a stand mixer. You can always do this by hand, but definitely because the dough is really sticky, it's best to have a stand mixer. What I have here is some flour, all-purpose, and also some high gluten flour. High gluten flour is also known as bread flour. You can find that in the grocery store as bread flour. It's what is used to make bread, and it helps the sticky buns have a nice kind of like chewy texture. When you bite into it, you get those nice big flakes of dough. So I have my flour in here, and then there's also some salt and sugar. And then we have some fresh yeast, or you can use the packaged dry yeast that you can buy at the supermarket. Then we have some water. And then finally, there are 5 eggs that go into this recipe. Again, feel free to do this by hand, but it will definitely take you a lot longer. If you have a mixer, I strongly encourage you to use it. Okay, so I've got all those ingredients here in the bowl. I'm just going to turn that on to about a medium-low speed. And this needs about 10 minutes in the bowl. What's going to happen is that all the eggs and the water and all of the other ingredients are all going to blend together, and slowly, the gluten's going to start to develop. And that's what's going to make a really nice, strong brioche dough. So this will go for about 10 minutes. It'll get kind of stiff. And then we'll come back to it and throw in some butter, and that's what makes it really rich. The next step in making the sticky buns, and this is the signature step, is the goo. We call it goo because it's extremely sticky and gooey, and it's what makes the bun so special. So first we start off with a big hunk of butter, and then to that we add brown sugar. And I'm putting this in a small saucepan over medium heat, and I'm just going to mush it around until the butter melts. So depending on how soft your butter is or how cold your butter is and how big your pan is, this can take anywhere from 10 seconds to up to a minute. Okay, once the butter and the brown sugar are all melted, you'll get this nice pasty mixture. We're going to add a little bit of water, a little bit of heavy cream, and honey. Again, I'm keeping my heat at about medium-high, and you're just going to mix everything together until it all comes together. And this goo you can make up to a week in advance. So if you don't want to make the sticky buns all in one go, you can find about 10 or 15 minutes during the week and get all your ingredients together for the goo. Stir this together until it all combines, and then put it in a sealed container in your refrigerator, and it should hold for about a week or so. Now you take your goo and you pour it into a roasting pan. This is a professional pan called a half hotel pan, but at home you could use a 9x13 roasting pan. Anything that is relatively tall, with tall sides, because you're going to be putting your sticky buns in here. Then you're going to take about half a cup of pecans. Okay, so here's the brioche dough. This has been working for about 10 minutes. And I wanted to show you guys how you can also do this dough by hand. So what I've done is I've measured my butter out, and this was the huge amount of butter that I told you about that makes this dough so great. And then just very painstakingly, we're going to sit here and work this dough until all of the butter gets worked in. The final product of the dough, it should be really sticky and really shiny and stretchy and soft. So it'll take a little while for the butter to work in. And probably it'll take about 10 or 15 minutes of just working the butter into the dough. So you can finish this off by hand, or you can put it back in the mixer, or you can do the entire thing in the mixer. It's up to you. Phew, there we go. We got all of our butter finally worked in. We've been kneading it for a little while, and it's all come together. And as you can see, the dough has become nice and shiny and soft. And most importantly, you want to make sure it's stretchy. So take a little bit of it and pull it. And if it comes off in pieces, then it's not ready. But if it starts to stretch and you can make like a window pane, then you know you've got enough gluten developed to make a nice sticky bun. Now, you can't work with it right away. You've got to put it in the refrigerator for at least 6 hours, but I would recommend overnight. Make sure you cover it well and put it in the fridge. And then the next day, tomorrow, we'll make sticky buns. Okay, so here we have our brioche dough that's been sitting overnight in the fridge. And you need to put it in the fridge overnight so that it has time to firm up so that you can roll it out into sticky buns. It's going to feel a little bit like Play-Doh, so it should be really cold and clammy. Take your dough and put it on a floured work surface, and then using a rolling pin, you're going to roll the dough out into a rectangle. You want your rectangle to be about 12 inches wide, 12 to 15 inches wide. And if you can, you want to try to square off the edges a little bit so you have a nice rectangle. You can kind of tug at the brioche to give it a nice squared corner. Okay, now we have, this is a little bit of white sugar, a little bit of brown sugar, and a little bit of cinnamon. I'm just going to mix all those ingredients together and then sprinkle evenly all over the brioche. Then I'm going to take some toasted chopped pecans and also sprinkle those evenly over the sugar. Okay. Now comes the fun part. Now we roll this up like a jelly roll. What you want to do is kind of pull up a little bit at the dough so that you get a nice tight spiral. So I'm taking the dough and I'm pulling it up a little bit and then rolling it over. And I'm pulling it up and rolling it over. Just like that. Trying to make sure that there's few air pockets in this spiral. Then I kind of mush it a little bit, again, to get out those air pockets. I'm going to trim each edge, and then I'm going to cut this into 8. There's 2, 4, 8. So these are your sticky buns that are ready to go into your baking dish. You're going to line your baking dish with the goo and then put these buns into the dish and then leave them at room temperature for about 2 hours covered with plastic. So here are the sticky buns. They've been rising or proofing for about 2 hours, and what happens is they grow and they should be touching each other. And this is what they look like when they're ready to go into the oven. So I'm going to put this in a 350-degree preheated oven for about 35 or 45 minutes. So here are the finished buns. They've been in the oven for about 35 to 45 minutes, but it's going to depend on your oven. Some people's ovens run hotter and some run cooler. So the best way to check whether or not they're done is just by sight. What you want to make sure is that all of the buns are nice and golden brown. You'll see that even in the little crevices here, they're all golden brown, and that means that the brioche is entirely cooked through. So You can pull them out of the oven, let them sit for, I would say, 30 to 40 minutes. And then you want to invert them onto a serving platter. They're definitely best served within, I would say, 4 to 5 hours of baking. If you happen to have leftovers, you can store them at room temperature overnight, but then I would suggest that you warm them up in a low oven for about 5 or 10 minutes just to bring them back to this fresh baked stage. And then this is the part that everybody loves. Put them all close together. Take all of this goo and pecans and evenly pour them all over the buns.